Hi, in this episode you will learn how to create a well-designed period slicer. A period slicer allows the user to dynamically set the time range applicable to your visuals. This episode is part of a larger series where we learn different techniques on how to build KPI cards. If you want to learn more about how to build KPI cards, I added links to the other episodes in the description. In the description, you will also find a link to a starter file that allows you to follow along with the exercise. Now it's time to stop talking and start building. The next functionality that we're gonna create is a slicer that allows us to switch the time horizon. So here on the top, you can see that currently I have the last 1 year selected as my time horizon. I can also switch to the last 90 days or 30 days. To build it, we're going to use a similar technique as we used for the KPI slicer, so to switch between the different visuals. Also here, we're going to create a disconnected table. So in our home ribbon, go to enter data, and then we're going to create a time horizon table. I'm going to add 2 columns to the time horizon table. The first one is the value of the time horizon itself. I have 30 days, 90 days, and I have 1 year. And then I'm going to add a second column with the time horizon sort order, because what you can see here, this is a text value. If we sort it, we would first get first year, then it would be 30 days and 90 days. So it's not in the order that we want to show it in our slicer. And that's why we're going to add a second column containing that sort order. Time horizon sort order. First, I want to display the year, then I want to show 90 days, and the last one is my 30 days. Click on load. Now we need to enforce our sorting order. Let's go to the table view, select our time horizon table, highlight the time horizon column, and then say sort by, and then the time horizon sort order. Go back to our reports and add a new tile slicer. I'm gonna add our time horizon to the tile slicer, and then you can see I have the 3 options in the correct sort order. We want to create a circular tile slicer. Let's adjust the layout. First of all, I'm gonna start by disabling the title and the header icons. I'm gonna change my padding here so that I don't have any space on the sides. I'm gonna put everything to 0. And then I'm gonna set my height to 45 pixels. That's more or less what I want to get. And then resize it so you get almost like squares. Let's adjust our callout values, put them in the middle, change the font to Segu UI, and put it at 8 points. That's starting to look like the slicer that we want to get, but we want to make sure that those become circles. So I have a height of 45. That means that if I'm looking at the curvature, so let's make it a rounded rectangle. If I then look at the curvature, it should be 22.5, which I cannot say half pixels, so let's just put it at 22 pixels. That's fine. And now we also need to make sure that the width of our slicer is also correctly set. So I have my 3 options here. So I have 3 circles of 45. That's 135 pixels. And then we also need to account for the white space or the padding in between. If I go here, then I can see that it has the default space of 8 pixels. So 135 plus 16 is 151. Let's go to the general settings and change the width to 151. And now we get nice circular icons. We also need to make sure that we update the behavior of our slicer. So we have a single select. I can only select 1 time horizon at a time. And I'm also going to enable forced selection so that there is always 1 option selected. And then you can see we can switch between those different time horizons. There's always 1 selected. But of course, at the moment, it's not doing anything to our visual yet. It's still displaying all the data points available in my data set. It's not filtering based on my selected time horizon. To make this happen, we need to make some changes to our measures that we created previously. And I'm also going to create two helper measures. The first one is going to define my period end date. And here I'm going to define it as the last date available within my data set. What you can also do in another scenario is just take today's date and then work back 1 year, 90 days, 30 days. But here, because the data set is not until today, it's an older data set, I'm just going to pick the last date available within my data set. So let's start by creating our period end date measure. Add it to the time horizon table. Call this one periods end date, and that is gonna be the maximum date key in my inventory table. So let's wrap it in a calculate function, and then it's the max date key in my fact inventory table. And I'm gonna make sure that I have all fact inventory records in there, so that regardless of any selection that I will further make in my visual, I will get a consistent period end date. So that's why I'm going to say all records regardless of any filters. Let's double check that we get the expected value, the period end date in a table visual, and then I get the 26th of December. Now we're going to create our period start date. Create a new measure again, call it period start date. I'm going to add a variable days to subtract, and then I'm going to wrap into a switch function based on the selected value of my time horizon slicer. Select value time horizon. This one, time horizon, yes. And then if my value is 30 days, then I'm going to return 30. If the value is 90 days, it will be 90. And otherwise, I'm going to return 365, so 1 year. And that also gives us a fallback. If for any reason there would be something wrong with the time horizon slicer, I always get a value that is being returned. Add a second variable, period start date, which will be our period's end date, so the measure that we created previously here, minus my days to subtract, and then I'm gonna return my period start date, save the measure, and also here just double check if that is correctly. I can see that my period is starting from the 26th of December 2021 until a year later. If I now start updating my slicer, my period start and end date is updating accordingly. So that's working, but we also need to apply a filter to our measures. So let's rework those. I'm going to start with the first one, my total stock. To do that, we're gonna also wrap the measure that we have previously created into a calculate function, and then we can apply a filter. So then we're gonna say filter my fact inventory table, and then I'm gonna say where date key of my fact inventory table is greater than or equal to my period start date. That's what we have there. Close the brackets. And then here we need to apply the same calculation when KPI 2 is selected. Save it, and now you can see that the visual is updating accordingly. If I now switch to my second visualization, my first measure is already filtered down, but I still need to update my optimal stock. So here we're gonna do exactly the same. take our existing measure, wrap it into the calculate function, apply the filter. It's my perfect inventory table. And then the filter is my date key needs to be greater than or equal to my period start date. So that's working. Switch to the third one, which were my stockouts. Again, by the same function here, existing measure, wrap it into a calculate function, apply the filter. That's done. That's working. Yes. And then the last one with my days stock on hand. Wrap it into the calculate, apply the filter, and we're done. Now you know how to build a well-designed period slicer. I think it's a great way to add some dynamic elements within your visuals. In the next episode, we're going to go a step further and add dynamic subtitles to communicate a unique insight to our users. If you want to know more, click the link above and I will see you in the next one.